been listening to the media, you've probably heard that Trump's nominee to head the CIA, Gina Haspel, she is a twisted and evil tormentor who has mastered the art of human pain and suffering. Why? She is the mastermind behind the darkest days in our history. Wow, they almost make her sound kind of like a terrorist. And yet the actual terrorists, you know, the ones who take pleasure in burning people alive, the ones who take pleasure in beheading people and slitting their throats and blowing up buildings, the ones who are hell-bent on taking Western civilization down in a bloody ruin, well, the human rights crowd, they tell us that they need to be treated with more respect. And yet the real sinister one in all of this is Miss Gina Haspel for daring to have a role in overseeing the enhanced interrogation methods that make these suspected terrorists feel a little uncomfortable. Aw, makes sense? Not really to me at all, but I guess it's just another day in the ass-backwards world of progressive America. Now, Gina Haspel's hearing is this week, and I think the hearing itself may be even more intense than any of the enhanced interrogation methods we use on the terrorists. But that doesn't stop the left from painting them as the most inhumane thing imaginable, because
Gina Haspel has a real history with enhanced interrogation in the CIA.
Her support for torture programs that came about after 9/11, the fact that she ran the secret U.S. detention camp in Thailand, the fact that somebody was waterboarded there under her watch.
And unfortunately, that nonsense drifted its way on down to the internet. Opinion writers Dr. Catherine C. McKenzie and Christina Castellani write in The Hill, quote, "We should oppose Gina Haspel's CIA nomination because of her torture record. Enhanced interrogation is a euphemism for torture, designed to make brutal interrogation methods such as waterboarding sound legitimate." Brutal? Waterboarding is not brutal. It's uncomfortable, maybe miserable, but that's about it. And just to show you, here is a video of it being done to a subject, just to show you the horrors of what it does to its victims.
I just want to know the truth. Tell me.
Your mom. That was actually CRTV's Steven Crowder getting waterboarded, and I think they seem to be laughing about it. And it's not just them, other hosts have done similar experiments. Here are the guys over at Glenn Beck's The Blaze waterboarding Stu Bergier, Glenn Beck's radio co-host, with a chocolate milkshake.
Some more. Ready, set, go. Is Leslie Stahl right? It's too chocolate.
I mean, that was brutal to me. Now, before we make too light of the subject, I should note that it is a serious technique that has made our enemies so uncomfortable in some instances that it does actually yield results. That's the point. It's effective. And it's important to clarify also that in both of these instances, with Steven Crowder and The Blaze, they were in a controlled environment, and the subjects didn't really last long at all. Steven Crowder even admitted this.
Well, it's not pleasant. No, there's nothing fun about it.
I mean, no one said it was pleasant. It's not supposed to be pleasant. That's the whole point. It is actually miserable. But you know what's also miserable? Jail. We're not calling that brutal. We don't have to give terrorists, you know, manicures and pedicures while we detain them. It's the point, because we are trying to stop devastating, deadly attacks. So forgive us if we're not exactly concerned about their temporary misery here. Besides, if it were truly evil like Gina Haspel's opponents are making it out to be, do you honestly think that radio and television hosts would be doing it to themselves as a gag? Probably not. As Mark Levin once said on his radio show, calling waterboarding torture actually degrades the word torture. I mean, for crying out loud, these guys that we're talking about are suspected terrorists. Some of them are self-proclaimed admitted terrorists, and they have information that we, the U.S., need. And if we made everything lovely and pleasant for them, we probably wouldn't get any of that information. The whole reason it works is because it's not pleasant, it's not comfortable, and that's really all it is, just uncomfortable. It's not brutal. We're not impaling people on pikes, we're not boiling people alive, we're not ripping out their spines. You know, that's what they used to do. That's what the Vikings used to do. Have you heard about the blood eagle? I'm not kidding, this is true. The Vikings used to hack open the person's back, rip apart their skin so that their spinal column was exposed. Then their ribs would be snatched out of their back one by one and bent backwards until they faced outwards, making a pair of bloody wings, and that's where it got the name. And then if that person, for whatever reason, was still kicking after all of that, their lungs would be pulled out of their body and then rubbed with salt, coated with salt, which would cause the person to suffocate. Now that is torture. If people from the Viking Age and people from history knew that, oh, I'm feeling like I'm drowning, or this is a good one, not getting a full 7.5 hours of sleep, which they call sleep deprivation, or a big scary bug, or another one of my favorites, making them stand for too long. If these people, I mean, have they ever pledged a fraternity, these people? If the people from the Viking Age in the past knew what the future of torture would actually look like, I promise you they'd throw a party. And before you say, well, it's ineffective, it doesn't work anyway, so what's the point? Of course it works. Enhanced interrogation, it works beautifully, and everyone knows it. The CIA compiled a report saying that the Central Intelligence Agency can advise you that this program works, and the techniques are effective in producing foreign intelligence. The report went on to say intelligence acquired from these interrogations has been a key reason why Al-Qaeda has failed to launch a spectacular attack in the West since 9/11/2001. If that claim weren't compelling enough, though, the CIA kindly provided a list of examples of terrorist plots they disrupted using the intelligence they acquired, guess what, through enhanced interrogation techniques. One plot called Second Wave involved a group of terrorists training to crash a hijacked airliner into the tallest building on our West Coast, kind of like 9/11 except on the West Coast. And another plot involved two operatives planning to build and detonate a dirty bomb right here in the Washington, D.C. area. The report included plenty more examples of terrorist operations in the United States and around the world that were identified or confirmed all because of these techniques that we're talking about. Obama's guy, Preet Bharara, Manhattan's chief federal prosecutor from 2009 to 2017, even attested to the program's value in the 2009 trial of Al-Qaeda bomb maker Ahmed Ghailani for his role in the 1998 U.S. embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania. And the other thing to remember here is we've only been using waterboarding on 3 terror suspects. People have said once we open this door, you know, it will be, quote, swiftly expanded to include anyone it decides to call a terrorist. That's what Michael Malice told me on Twitter, and he's a friend. I respect him a lot, and I agree with him on a lot of things, but I have to respectfully disagree with him here, because we just haven't seen that happen.
We only use these on 3 people,
right,
including Khalid Sheikh Mohammed.
Terrorists.
Yeah, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who killed Danny Pearl,
right,
slit his throat on video, and was the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks. So it's only 3 people, and then we stopped. And then Congress passed a new law in 2008 clarifying what it meant. So the legal regime is completely different now. Gina Haspel is coming in as CI director, I hope, with a different set of laws and rules. And so we aren't going to have to struggle like she and I and others did right after the 9/11 attacks to figure out what we could do.
Now, that was the former Deputy Assistant Attorney General, John Yoo. He says it's not swiftly being used against anyone, but as we showed you, when they did use it back in 2001, it was helpful in getting information we needed to fight the war on terror. And I've also got some breaking news for you. Fighting a war, it ain't pretty. And sometimes in a war, which we were engaged in post 9/11 when these interrogation methods were legal, your enemies don't always get the same constitutionally granted rights like you and I do, and the due process stuff that we give our citizens here in America. Generally, the Constitution has not been applied outside the U.S. anyway. And as the liberal lawyer Alan Dershowitz explains, the 8th Amendment, you know, the one that prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, it ends in the civilian criminal justice system. It ends right here. These terror suspects do not fall within that system at all. And the same is true for the due process granted and guaranteed by the 5th and 14th Amendment. As Andy McCarthy explains in National Review, waterboarding a top Al-Qaeda terrorist who has knowledge of an imminent weapons of mass destruction attack against an American city might be different from coercing a suspect to submit to warrantless stomach pumping just so we can use the couple of pills he emits to try him for narcotics violations. And he uses the Supreme Court's ruling in 1952 to back up his case. Now, the techniques we're talking about aren't even that cruel and unusual. I mean, if radio hosts can handle enhanced interrogation techniques like waterboarding, don't you think that this self-described architect of September 11th, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, can and should? I mean, are these wimps really upset about the fact that this woman, Gina Haspel, put someone capable of such evil in a situation that's, oh, not very pleasant, to quote Crowder? That's how you lose wars. That's how you lose battles. The terrorists attack us oh, but we have to be very nice to them because we believe in human rights. Well, if you believed in human rights, then you would stand up for justice for those whose innocent lives were taken because of these sick animals. And instead, you're busy playing politics and even lying.
The Senate has never confirmed somebody with an operational role in the use of torture. That would be a first. It's a new low for the country if she gets confirmed.
Bullcrap. I mean, it's just straight up bullcrap. It's simply not true. John Brennan was involved probably more than Gina Haspel in the Enhanced Interrogation Technique program, and he was confirmed by the Senate as CIA director under Obama. Gina Haspel, she was just a mid-level director following orders. So this is nothing more than a smear campaign that we see so much against people around Trump. It is a smear campaign to paint Gina Haspel as a sadistic torturer. She's not a sadistic torturer. She was carrying out a program authorized by George W. Bush and approved, by the way, by policymakers and lawmakers that led to intelligence to catch and get more terrorists. She is highly qualified, by the way. She has dedicated over 3 decades to serving her country, and as the Washington Post admits, beyond her 3 years of work for the Counterterrorism Center, from 2001 to 2004, she appears to have spent much of the first 15 years of her career in Russia-related operations. That's helpful to us. She has a strong relationship with MI6, Britain's spy service, which will be a key ally in helping U.S. in operating against Russia and China. But of course, the Russia-funded propagandists, oh, they don't like that. And it turns out the ties go even deeper than you think. Jordan Schachtel at Conservative Review explains how the bloody Gina Haspel libel, that quote, bloody Gina Haspel, that's just the work of a Russian-funded propagandist. And for more on that, you can find his piece at conservativereview.com. It explains how a disgruntled and disgraced CIA officer dragged her name through the mud, and that's how she got that name, Bloody Gina. Again, it's a pathetic smear campaign. She's more than qualified, and her record speaks for itself, and so do the lies. If you look at where they're coming from, they tell you everything you need to know. They come from political operatives here in America who have a soft spot, for whatever reason, for terrorists, but they don't have the same soft spot for people they politically disagree with, and it comes from Russian-funded propagandists abroad. So do not let the propagandists make you think that her participation in a highly effective enhanced interrogation program, that should be reason enough to deny her the role she very much deserves as head of the CIA.